morning, SMITE fans, and welcome back to another day of SMITE Esports here on this lovely Saturday morning in Alpharetta, Georgia. We're going to be kicking things off with the SMITE Challenger Circuit over in the North American region, our final SCC matchup of the weekend. And then after that, we'll move over into the SMITE Pro League around 1 p.m. And then for the rest of the weekend on Sunday, it's always our triple header for SPL. Before we can get into any of the SPL action, it's the SCC. It's J-Mac, it's Billy joining me back on the desk for our final matchup over in North America. Now, yesterday we got to look at the number 1 EU team in Hex Mambo. Today we're going to be looking at the number 1 NA team in the Eldritch Hounds, taking on the Anansi Weavers, who have had a little bit of a struggle the last phase, Billy.
Yeah, the Anansi Weavers are coming into this from last place. They and both Ayomi Tanuki went to relegations, which, as you might know, is the bottom 2 SCC teams, top 2 SOC teams playing against each other, both main rosters secured. However, they're back in the SCC. They don't make any roster changes, and they're coming into this pretty raw.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the schedule, at least for the NASCC, and see what you have missed up until this point for the North American squads out there. Earlier on Thursday during the week, we got to watch the Athenian Sages and the Shibalba Storm face off. That was a 2-1 for the Storm. The Kowloon Wardens and Yomi Tanuki squared off, and that was the Yomi Tanuki who came out on top with the 2-0. Now we move on to our final matchup of Week 1 in Phase 3 of the SCC, which is the Eldritch Hounds and Anansi Weavers. Now, talking about these two teams just briefly before we actually go into the full kind of breakdown of these guys, is to mention that between these two teams, there was only one roster change. Remikami on the Eldritch Hounds is out, and Ducky has made his way onto a roster now. Former SPL solo laner for the Valhalla Valkyries back in Season 8 has now made his way over here, at least for the Eldritch Hounds, to replace their solo laner this phase.
Yeah, a lot of people might be considering, hey, we haven't seen Ducky since SPL plans. Probably he doesn't have a lot of experience. But if you're an aficionado similar to myself, you may know that Ducky was actually a substitute player for the Yomi Tanuki during their relegation matches. Snatty was out, Ducky was in. Very brief substitute situation. But he does have some experience. He has played competitive. He has played at the SCC level. And I mean, sure, he's played at the SPL level, but he's not coming to this without any, refresher course. He's coming into this with some experience, some momentum under his belt, and I am very excited to see how well he can perform today.
Yeah, Ducky was definitely a player, at least whenever he was on the SPL, that had some shot-calling mechanics himself. Also had a couple of eclectic picks that really only he was playing. When I think of Ducky, one of the first gods that come to mind that really nobody at the SPL level was playing was something like the Sun Wukong. He was also playing Tyr when nobody else was playing that god around that time. So you never know what Ducky is going to bring to the table for the squad. One thing that you do know that Oath is going to bring to the squad, the jungler for the Eldritch Hounds, is early game aggression and hyper carries galore. I mean, I think of Oath, I'm thinking gods like Set, Ao Kuang, Kali, those ones all kind of come to mind. But then he's also able to kind of swing his way over towards the gods like Nemesis to get maybe a little bit slower of a start, but once he gets to that late game, really ends up being that hyper carry for his team.
Yeah, I think this is a meta that's going to very strongly suit Oath specifically. He has some great gods in this kind of pool that work very well. I'm thinking auto attackers, I'm thinking Nemesis, maybe even Baka. He has a great god pool, and not only that, as you said, Ducky does have a bit of an eclectic god pool. He can switch that up, play assassins. During those relegations, he was playing a good bit of Thor solo, which is something not only we haven't seen recently, but we haven't seen in a good bit of time. And I'm just very excited for the synergy between these two players specifically because they can bring a lot in together. You see him right now playing some Athena. Who plays Athena in solo lane nowadays? It's just going to be very exciting, and realistically, it's going to be a lot of good picks, a lot of high pressure. I think playing through solo isn't going to be something that the Hounds aren't going to be familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, Oath typically was one of the players who would set up for the remainder of his squad, and then once he got that third, fourth item online, decides to, well, he wants to be the star of the show sometimes out there. And then we already know about the synergy of the dual lane between Quig and Dude Man Bro over there. Guys are legends amongst the SCC there. Going up against them is the Anansi Weavers. No changes made from them from Phase 2 through the relegations and now into Phase 3. And as you mentioned, I mean, this was the number 6 team. This was the bottom-seeded team in Phase number 2, a team that maybe we thought would have needed to make a couple of adjustments, but they think that the time that they've had between Phase 2 relegations now into Phase 3, guess they need to stick together for themselves is maybe what they're thinking.
And I do like that idea, the idea that changing out players for people who may be better on paper isn't something that's going to really develop you as a team. It'll add a passive, hey, we have a better player now, but we've never played with them as a team. We've never played with them in scrims where we have a lot of history. The Anansi Weavers team, sure, they may have ended near the bottom spot, but they've been playing together since those SEC play-ins. They've made 0 roster changes besides maybe a few switch-ups here and there. Sops time was the name they went by, and I mean, that's kind of where they play through on mid in that Sops' playground. He can play pretty much anything. There's Uller, there's Thoth highlights. There's a lot of stuff going for him. He has a great versatile side lane in Mando and both Diesel. They're great auto attack players. They play whatever they want. You see Cope specifically can bring in this Hercules both in jungle, give it to Chinfu over the jungle, take it for himself, and Big Slim Timmy Jim is Cope, just so we're not confused. Good player, not a random that you see in ranked. You might see him in ranked. He might int a little bit, but not too much. Realistically, Chinfu, what is he going to play today? I really want another Sylvanas jungle game. That's going to be a great way to start out. They haven't lost with Sylvanas jungle. Their wins come through playing that. When Chinfu's playing Sylvanas, the Weavers do not lose. Maybe he brings it out. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see.
Could be an opportunity to see what Chinfu and the rest of the Weavers bring, because they're going to need to bring their A game if they want to take down the #1 seeded North American squad of the Eldritch Hounds. We're ready for picks and bans, though, for game #1 between the Hounds and the Weavers, so we won't have to wait too long to see what one of those picks are going to be for these squads. It will be the Eldritch Hounds taking that first pick slot. A lot of opportunities open, and I guess they were listening, and they did their research on the Weavers. They know Sylvanas is pretty good for them. We'll go ahead and ban that one away. Though Sylvanas, I'm actually surprised, jokes aside from Sylvanas jungle, I'm surprised with the rise of Fablest and Manticore Spike that we haven't been seeing more Sylvanas, even in the support role.
Yeah, Sylvanas is kind of a tricky god. Immobile, sure, very stand your ground, but what you really need from a support right now is one that can proc Manticore Spikes. That's very hard on Sylvanas outside of the ultimate ability. He gets the healing out. He gets a lot of stuff going in terms of protecting his team protections, but he's immobile. Having that in support isn't the best option right now. Putting him in jungle does give him a bit of that funny, hey, don't stand by me because now my abilities do a ton of damage, and that's great, but you don't want that in support. You want something like Cabrakan.
Oh, Cabrakan will be locked in. You have to take a look at the remainder of the band. Sylvanas, Hou-Yi, and Ymir for the Hounds. Weavers take away Rat, Guan Yu, and Khepri. With the Kraken lock in, goes to Chernobog. Yemoja's still up, so I'm surprised that Yemoja wasn't maybe the snap lock decision of either of these teams. Instead, it does end up being that Cabrakan for the Hounds, so they value maybe a little bit more of that kind of damage-oriented style there. Weavers aren't even going to either way towards the Yemoja. Quite possible we might see this guy completely fall to the wayside, at least in this game, because it's Chernobog and King Arthur locked in for the Weavers.
Yeah, some great picks. You can kind of be iffy on what you want in terms of Chernobog. You can throw him mid, give him more ability-based damage. You can keep him ADC, auto-attack builds. Into Cupid, however, we saw that yesterday in our sets, and the Cupid into Chernobog is not great for the Chernobog. You can get a bit of mobility out of that, but Cupid in itself sets up the Fields of Love, sets up a lot of just damage over time in the team fight, chasing you down, pressure on the wave, pressure in the fights, has some great synergy with Cabrakan too, forcing them to sit in the Field of Love, forcing people to take damage grouped up together with Heart Bombs. Lots of good picks and synergy coming from the Hounds as they finish with a Lancelot for this first phase. Lots of control, lots of damage, lots of chase down.
Yeah, and a little bit of flexibility as well. Just between that Cabrakan and the Lancelot, I mean, I'm even going to say it, 4 different roles that Cabrakan could play, minus the Hunter role pretty much for that one. Lancelot, a couple of roles that he could swap in between the solo and the jungle. And then Yu Huang will get locked in. And this is something, at least during the SPL, that Hurry was very surprised we weren't seeing more of at the top level of play, but something at least in the SEC we have seen kind of a lot of priority. I mean, what's up with the Yu Huang? I mean, nothing's really changed with him from Phase 2 and towards Phase 3. Is it just the itemization that's kind of made him so much more powerful?
So I like Yu Huang. I think he's a good god. His damage really doesn't come online until late game. You have to really prepare to take the game to late game, build kind of a composition around going that far into the game, because you don't want a Yu Huang at 15 minutes isn't going to be doing as much damage as, you know, a Thoth, whatever you may pick in mid right now, even a Hades, which I'm surprised also hasn't been touched right now. Yu Huang is very kind of dangerous in terms of where you space yourself. You have to be very careful. You only get one bailout with the Dragon's Call on your 3 to rise up out of the damage a little bit, like Freya in her ultimate. But outside of that, you're down on the ground, and you have to have a lot of space created for your team. And if you can't provide that, you're pretty much free bait.
Well, speaking about the Thoth, that one will be picked up for the Eldritch Hounds. It'll be a Cerberus for, I'm going to assume that one's going over to Big Slim in the support role for the Weavers, considering that King Arthur has already been locked in. Amaterasu to round out the draft over towards the solo lane this time around for Ducky. So we're going to see how he can perform on that god. And the final one being looked at for the
Oh,
Weavers,
baby.
if this Hercules gets locked in, you already know that one is going to be going over to Chinfu in the jungle.
Oh yeah, this is a bit of a unique pick. I think Coat Baby kind of started this last split in the SCC when he was playing the Hercules in the jungle, building some crit items, building big ability-based damage with Transcendence, with Jotuns. It can do a lot. You have to kind of build it up. There's a lot of space control with the Hercules, which I really like. It works well with a Yu Huang who needs it. Coat Baby will probably be taking the Cerberus into support. It's a pick he kind of likes because he hits those paralyzing spits. It's a pretty hard skill shot just in itself, and if you can confirm that pretty consistently, you're not only doing a lot of damage, but you're also having a very certain area of space which you can control the stun in. It's a specific spot where it hits, so having that ability to control, to say, hey, keep out of this area of my teammates, or you're getting stunned and then you're getting a ton of damage. It works really well. The Weavers comp is a bit specific to themselves, to these players, but I think it works pretty well together.
Decent bit of control on both sides of the board, but who's going to come out on top for game at number 1? We'll have to jump into the game between the Eldritch Hounds and the Anansi Weavers to see how this is all going to start back out. Remember, the Eldritch Hounds undefeated through their regular season play up till this point. The Anansi Weavers, a bit of a struggle in last phase. We'll see if this time away from the competitive scene, this kind of downtime that they have had up until this point, maybe brings them that little bit of extra synergy that they have been needing. And as we jump in, nothing really surprising as to where as far as where the picks go. With that Amaterasu that got locked in, that kind of confirmed where the other two picks were going. And how do you feel about Oath specifically on the land slot? I mean, like we were talking about earlier, much more hyper-focused style gods like Kali and Set kind of fit his build. How do you feel about the more traditional, just early ability style?
I do like Lancelot in the jungle right now. Does it really fit what we've seen from Oath? Not really. And that's not to say he can't play it. I just haven't seen kind of the material needed to position it. Personally, I really like how Lancelot looks in the solo lane more than the jungle. We've seen players like like Variety play it very well. When he's tank-based, he can get in on his horse, have a huge shield, be very annoying with how often he spams it. However, when you get the Lancelot in the jungle, what we'll more than likely see from Oath around level 5 is having that ability to get on the horse just as frequently, but it does a lot more damage. The throwing the horse out, jumping up, getting the root will confirm a lot more damage, and having a team based around playing with mobility, with diving, with chasing through, Lancelot performs very well with. His ultimate gives him a lot of the distance, getting on the horse gives him extra mobility and a little bit of HP with the shield, so it's a very strong chase down god. You do need around level 5 to even 8 to kind of initiate that phase though.
I will say, I just realized just how much threat there is as far as mobility is concerned.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about that in a moment as Big Slim gets jumped on. He should be fine to get back towards the wave and back towards the tower, but a threat against mobility that the Eldritch Hounds have provided here. Not only do they have Dude Man Bro on the Cupid, which has Fields of Love, big cripple field, but also Lancelot. That joust that goes out also leaves an area on the ground that has a cripple on it as well. So that's a lot of area where the Weavers have to kind of play around with all of their abilities.
Yeah, and it's going to be very dangerous. I think this comp is really built around playing on the offset, though. Cerberus one has to hit at a very specific range. You saw Diesel on the Chernobog when he had the range to hit Dude Man Bro in the root with his little bomb. It was able to pop his beads very early.
Both wrapping around. Big Slim doesn't have his leap available to him, so he is caught out, nowhere to go, and it's Dude Man Bro 429 for the Eldritch Hounds to pick up first blood for his team.
Yeah, kind of falling down there. Big Slim, the ego kind of on Cerberus is that when you have your second level, right, you want either your paralyzing spit and your breath, but because you have those two abilities that do a lot of damage, create a lot of ability in lane to kind of get the pressure back, you lose out on your jump, which keeps you very safe. Couldn't jump out of that situation as he was contesting the Indra Scepter, so he will fall for first blood. It happens to Cerberus. Sometimes you really just want to get active, start doing stuff. Don't get the jump, can't jump out. That would have brought him to safety, but it wouldn't have provided him the amount of pressure that he could have to even contest the Scepter there.
Yeah, unfortunate for him now, he'll be a little bit behind in the golden XP department, though. The Scepter did go over their way, so he is able to pick that one up for himself, get a little bit of extra pressure for him in Diesel in the lane, or try to, at the very least. And one thing that Cerberus has always kind of been good at whenever we see him, at least over in the solo lane, is the ability to get that extra little poke out there. And you can see that spit that you were highlighting earlier on, just how much damage it can do if you're able to land all those shots. So for now, dual lane, at least first blood going over to Dude Man Bro, probably one of the better players that you can give that one over to, get onto the Cupid, get that Transcendence started up just a little bit sooner. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the board, Ducky going for the Death's Toll to start out in the solo lane, then going towards what I assume is probably going to be the Golden Blade for this Amaterasu.
Yeah, auto attack based is really where Ama performs very well. Her passive plays with it. You get 3 auto attacks on one target. You get a little field around them that reduces their overall protections. Playing through that, there's going to be a lot of damage that comes out kind of like, what's Big Slim Timmy Jim? Goodness, I can't even say it. It's my first day on the job, guys. It's a lot of damage that Amaterasu can provide. You go Golden Blade because your clear is going to be very weak compared to King Arthur. So Ducky's playing under tower, playing very safe, just taking the waves as they come for now. When Golden Blade comes online, which more than likely is what he will go towards, lots of clear becomes available, lots of just being able to fight a lot more. You can see right now getting just bullied out of the wave without that shining mirror being able to be on cooldown or 2. Can't really provide anything right now. Gotta wait till that Golden Blade gets online. And Mando's playing a very good job of just zoning out, playing the bully, potentially looking for blue buff invades. I think that's where he can kind of swing his pressure right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the tale of 2 sides of the coin for Mando Warrior is sometimes he'll play these very bully, heavy style warriors or guardians, try and get that pressure that way. Just like they're getting pressure on Big Slim. Another rotation in from the jungler means another kill onto the support. But with Mando, I mean, you talk about him, and sometimes we'll see, for a while it was the assassin play. He was playing a lot of the Bested, a lot of the clean at the early starts of the season. Then once those gods kind of fell off, we started seeing these much more kind of in-your-face warriors and guardians being played out here, and that's really allowing him to have this pressure to keep Ducky either pushed under tower or right at that tier 1 tower line pretty much the entire way through.
Jinfu didn't notice that the blue buff spawned as soon as he turns the corner. This is something that the Eldritch Hounds were kind of known for, even with Ramakami. When they know that the solo laner won't have pressure in the lane, what they've started doing is that they will drop the blue buff, right? They won't pick it up. The solo laner then goes and does those mini smalls right there to the side of the actual backs, does those, gets up, and then gets the blue buff on a different cooldown to the enemies so that the timers are desynced. The enemy doesn't know, the Anansi Weavers don't really have the ability to tell, hey, this is off cooldown, let's go invade, and they lose the potential invade because of it. The timer offset is very smart, very well done, and something I wish we could see more often against low pressure solo laners.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that before, especially when, like, what was it, like Bakasura was real meta, and, you know, Bakasura is going to want to come for an invade, where they were even, like, delaying beyond the first wave in order to get that blue buff drop out there.
The very first time that the Hounds did this strat, Ramakami was their solo laner, was playing Vamana. He waited 45 seconds before the blue buff dropped to pick it back up. You see the enemy solo lane they were doing against the Tanuki. Shadow Dragon comes over on Bakasura, waits there for 40 seconds, starts his back. As soon as he backs, the blue buff respawns. And that is just the power that this kind of meta has, because 40 seconds, the enemy jungler wasn't getting farm. It was just sitting there waiting around, waiting for something to happen. Ramakami got his blue buff. They get the full XP. Nothing even bad had to happen, because as we saw there, that play was made in dual lane. Oath went over. So surely this is a blue buff invade. Chinfu even came over. There was no timer, no blue buff. Nothing could happen.
Well, Diesel, where's he going to land? Is it back with his teammate? It is crashing straight down into a stun. Dash to the wall, double dash out. But Dude Man Bro cannot close the gap in order to find any more damage out there, but that is not only ultimate, but beads away from Diesel. That's going to bring a rotation from Oath once again to the dual lane. 3rd time he has made his way over here. First 2 times end up netting them a kill on the support. This time not going to come up with anything.
Yeah, and you kind of horse around, look a little bit for this purple buff. However, the timer's a little early for it. Instead, Quig will go ahead and take some of that enemy crab tower, building up his own. Trebuchets this early kind of could give you a bit more pressure, but if you're in the area and the jungler's not around, might as well take a few.
Quig between 2. He'll walk back over to Dude Man Bro, who's been getting a little bit of solo farm over in this dual lane to allow himself to get some extra pressure out there on this Cupid. That Transcendence already started up, stacking up as well. But it ended up getting there just about the same time as Diesel. I mean, if you look at their stack count, they're pretty much dead even at this point. You would have thought with 2 kills for Dude Man Bro, one of those being first blood, that he would have had that item online a little bit and maybe stacked a little bit further along than he is.
Yeah, it'll happen sometimes. If you have kind of a lead in lane, right, it's depending on when you want to back that you can actually build the item to start it stacking. There'll be some fight over here for the purple buff, but I think this should go to the Weavers pretty much no problem. Quig's going to try and just be annoying. This is what you do as a support, stall the time that it takes them to get purple buff. Maybe you get lucky and get a lucky hit in there, but actually we might be taking a real fight. We have 4 people here for this purple buff and 4 people for Quig.
Chinfu will walk over to make sure he can help secure it. Quig, recognizing that there's now at least 3 people on the side of the map, will not push any further up towards the purple. All it takes is one little pluck from Chinfu in order to put this Cabrakan in dangerous territory. But Ducky, even despite the fact that he's kind of been shoved under the tower, despite the fact he lost some of that early lane pressure, he does have about a half-level lead up over Mando Warrior. Only has been able to get a couple of these Totem of Coups compared to Mando, so Ducky, in his own regard, I guess because he's been left alone so much, where Chinfu has been spending maybe more time in that solo lane, has allowed Ducky to get that extra bit of XP over Mando.
Yeah, and Chinfu right now does have a bit of an XP lead over on Oath. Oath has been putting a lot of pressure on this duo side, but because these invades haven't been able to really happen here on the solo side for the Weavers, it's just very hard for Chinfu to kind of get a leg up in addition to having a solo laner with a leg up. I don't think as a King Arthur you really mind having an Amaterasu against you with just a little bit of a lead, because that dash silence can get annoying, but it's not like you're just giving it for free. You're making these contestations, you're making these plays where, hey, maybe this blue buff invade can go off, we just need the timer. Hey, maybe we can take these back camps. Hey, maybe we can take the solo side Chad Harpy. We can do some big fighting here in this solo lane, but it'll require some swing like a jungler showing up.
Ultimate from Mando gets away from the stun from Ducky. Saw Oath rotating over. No ultimate, no beads for Diesel. Gets stunned out from his dash in towards Dude Man, who's losing the battle. With Big Slim here, that should be a kill onto Dude Man. Big Slim must have used his leap to get there a little bit sooner, because he just now gets it back off cooldown. The breath through, but the wall from Quig will make sure that his Hunter can get out of the fight. And with Crimson and Oath on the way, no chance that Chinfu can rotate in. In fact, Chinfu's the one in danger, pushed away from his own ultimate from the mid laner there. Oath, or I should say Crimson, not able to connect that final judgment. Could have potentially gotten a kill there, but not going to find. Instead, Chinfu blinks in, gets the ultimate out of Oath, pushes him off the horse, but the boulder is just off the mark. The fire is enough damage from Sops. A 1-for-1 trade in mid, maybe more. If Big Slim can find his way out of the tremors, he will get the leap off just in time. And now with Mando and Ducky rotating in, a full battle in the mid lane. So many people have rotated over, and with the dragons down, that should be the end of the fight.
So that entire fight started back in dual lane, spilling over to mid lane. I think both ADCs played that pretty well, as best as you could have. Surely no one got the solo kill in lane, but that's gonna happen. You're playing very careful, you're playing very scared. The supports rotate in, protect the ADC the best that they can, and they do. Once we get this spillage out into mid lane, that's when it becomes a real team fight. Realistically, the Weavers were kind of just pressuring way too hard up. I think they were looking for something that wasn't there when they were chasing Dude Man out. They do get it into a good fight. We saw that the Chinfu blink in gets the 2 off and would have pulled Oath should the cavalry charge not come out when he does get the ultimate off, putting in CC immunity. And that boulder would have killed should it hit the first bounce. So some good trade-ups by the Weavers. They really did need kind of that XP stimulant, at least in the mid lane to jungle. So I don't dislike that play at all. Going for it. Needs to build up, though. I think the mid lane fight is kind of where we were looking. We can see the difference between these two builds. Crimson on the Thoth went for the Divine Ruin first and is not building in any stacking items. On the other side, the Sops going into that Warlock's kind of traditional Mirrodin. We're getting 20% total pen from those 2 items, which does a lot for you early and scales very well. However, Warlocks isn't stacked up. It's not completely finished. Neither is Mirrodin. So the total damage that the Yu Huang can put out right now is a little lackluster compared to the early flat pen that Erupt Crimson went for. Just because he has that flat number there means he does a little bit more than what that percent penetration could provide.
For sure in that regard. And then you also get Thoth's passive, which gives him even more flat pen. So it's just flat pen, stacking on flat pen, stacking on a third one, as not only is it the Divine Ruin for Crimson, but a Spear of Desolation on top of that. Then, because he's hit level 12, can't pick up his second relic, so Aegis, no surprise. From the mid laner, we've been seeing either Aegises or Shells kind of be the secondary along with those beads. Been seeing Shell depending on kind of if it's more of the auto attack style of meta, when we're seeing more of the Hunters pop their way around. Now there is some big burst damage out there between Chinfu and Sops. No surprise to see the Aegis be picked up for the mid laner. Quig finds the stun onto Big Slim, catches him in the tremors, but a push onto a rough Crimson puts him in danger. Does have to dash to get out in time, Diesel. And Chinfu will close in the gap. The pickup is good. Needs the push from Chinfu if he wants to get the kill or not. Maybe it'll just be the dragons that get the damage through, and the boulder is for Quig instead. Mando slams Oath down, forces the ultimate out, and Ducky is in the middle of a few. Big Slim picks him up, drops him right back down. And Dude Man a little late to get into the fight, but not for Oath, who's able to get one kill. The breath from Big Slim, not enough. It'll be Jinfu with the double kill on the push for the kill.
And Ducky is here, but he's very weak, despite the fact that he is strong enough to tank 1v4. He's not going to live very long. Dude Man Bro and himself are going to be playing for as much neutral farm as they can get right here and potentially posture up on this Gold Fury because the Weavers are weak, but they're strong enough to fight, not strong enough to pull the Gold Fury for sure. So they need to go ahead and make sure that's not happening and then let everything return to how it should be.
Bro, level 13 on the Cupid. Had a great ultimate placed out in the middle of there, but unfortunately not enough for his team to capitalize on. As a 3-for-1 trade for the Anansi Weavers. Though gold still sitting in favor of the Eldritch Hounds, 13.5 minutes in, about a 1,500 gold lead that the Hounds may be able to pick up for themselves. Experience mostly in their favor, and in most of that does come from the side lanes. Ducky 1 level up, and as I mentioned earlier, about 2 level lead that Dude Man Bro has over Diesel. So if you are the Weavers, with Dude Man Bro starting to get this pretty significant lead over the opposition as far as the XP is concerned, at any point do the Weavers then maybe just send the cavalry over to the dual lane and try and shut down Dude Man?
So what's happening right now is that fight went very well for the Weavers in the mid lane because they forced the issue, and sure, it spilled over into left lane a little bit, but as soon as Dude Man Bro, who is a good bit up, started getting active into the fight, they kind of dropped everything to kind of avoid him rather than to commit to him. I think when they get levels on the Weaver side, sure, you can rotate in and try to actually capitalize on having more deaths, but there's no real reason to force that. If you're getting a good advantage, a good trade up by just killing 3 in that mid fight, even though it does spill, you want to keep that going. You want to keep building that XP and not force any more deaths. Sure, if the Cupid died, if Dude Man does fall, he's behind a good bit. We get a good up on Diesel, who does need a bit of assistance, but as long as he can stay alive in this lane and kind of just stalemate things, not fall too far low, the fighting in mid is going to fall in the favor of the Weavers, and they need to keep that running while they can.
A few ultimates traded out at the bottom side of the left jungle. 2 on the side of the Weavers. One of them used aggressively to try and go back towards Dude Man Bro by Diesel. And Big Slim uses his, gets Oath and Quig to both use their ultimates to get out of that fight and prevent themselves from being picked up for another turnaround potential there. The Eldritch Hounds did pick up the Pyromancer earlier on. Crimson off the mark with the evade and punish.
Oh, no.
Mando off the mark with Excalibur's Wrath and will now be shoved back and will eat a double stun by Ducky. Final Judgment clips through Jinfu, half his HP gone. Big Slim trying to force a fight over with the Thoth in the Fire Giant pit. Quig walks up, doesn't find the stun.
Very clean.
Good Celestial Flight will get Sops out of danger, and Crim still a little too far away to finish up any damage.
So right now the Hounds are winning just because of the pressure they're getting from neutral games. You can see it even on duo side. Diesel's losing out on purple, and he might just be losing out of this fight. One auto on either side will swing it. Diesel, however, will stay alive out of the Heart Bomb because of the Aegis, and Jinfu comes ahead and swings a home run against the ADC here for the Hounds.
Yeah, nice easy pickup for Jinfu to follow up. And every one of these 1v1s that Dude Man has been taking, aside from just the very last one that got Diesel's ultimate out earlier on in the fight, Diesel's kind of been winning these trades. He's been hitting a few more autos. That Heart Bomb isn't quite doing enough damage for Dude Man Bro. Unfortunate for Dude Man, if he would have just stuck around and waited for the stun of that Heart Bomb, he might have been able to at least make that a 1-for-1 trade out, but instead he loses his life. And a nice little shutdown goes over towards Jinfu at the very least. 3-1-2 on the Jungle Hercules, and a little bit of a hybrid build in there at the very beginning of it at least. Some flat pen, at least with the Mace Tree, but going for that Shield of Regrowth in a second item.
Yeah, I'll be very happy to announce that Shield of Regrowth is in fact a core item on Hercules. It does not matter what role you put it in, because his 3 acts as a heal, acts as just, it's always going to be there regardless of how much anti-heal you have. You're going to proc it, you're going to get your prots, you're going to get that gas pedal when you build Regrowth.
Double pickup by Big Slim, but he's losing all of his health to Dude Man instead. Oath lands down into the Dragons and is trying to find a path out. Will use the Joust to get himself away, and Crimson with Final Judgment will put Mando Warrior in the dirt. Diesel slowed down, has to use the beads. Heart Bomb hits, and he is gone. Ducky grabs the kill for that one, goes in with a dazzling offensive, and Sops, it's only a matter of time before he falls down. Ducky with the double kill, and the Hounds with 4.
Very tricky here for the Hounds. What they saw was the build between the 2 ADCs. Jinfu will be lurking around here. I potentially do believe a Boulder could steal this, but if the Hounds are too aware, they won't let it happen. You can see some big numbers come out on it, sure, but the Hounds are going to finish this up as they finish up this kill as well.
Delayed deicide for the Hounds. Gold Fury goes to the Hounds as well. And what was a 1,500 gold lead just minutes ago has now spiraled to a near 6,000 gold and 7k XP lead for the Eldritch Hounds. And this is a reason why this is the #1 team. Even though they're losing some of these early fights, once it comes to this objective play, once they're able to finally get a full 5v5 style of grouping, this is where the Eldritch Hounds really shine.
Yeah, that fight in specificality was why really showed to me what the Hounds are kind of bringing. It's very smart fighting. They're fighting on their terms, and they're taking it to every single member of the Weavers. Doesn't matter what lane you're in.
What a perfect wall placement by Quig. Blocked the only potential path that King Arthur had out. And Oath will grab the 10th kill for the team, 3rd kill for himself in the fight.
Yeah, and as I was saying, the reason why the Hounds do so well is because they know when they want to fight. We saw in dual lane, sure, the 1v1 versus Dude Man Bro and Diesel, all the way back to that fight, Diesel was winning. However, Dude Man goes home, he goes back to base, and he buys a kin size. That's when the Hounds are starting to be ready to fight in duo, when that item advantage is there. Before that fight, they had the same exact build. They had the they had the Leather Cowl, they had the Transcendence, they had the Executioner. They were ready to go, but with Dude Man here with the full kin size, he's doing a lot more damage to tanks, a lot more damage to ADCs, a lot more damage to everyone out on the map. That's why the Hounds decided, hey, let's fight left. We have such an item advantage. We're going to win it as long as Dude Man Bro is involved, and he was.
He was involved. We will see the Trebuchet pushed up towards mid. Crimson will deal with that one, no problem. For himself, so his tower will not be under any threat. Instead, it was the tier 1 in solo, and now the tier 1 in duo under a bit of fire. Chinfu, who's been mostly using that blink offensively. One of the first times this game we've had to see him use it to escape from a potential fight to break out. And the Eldritch Hounds, with pressure galore for themselves, Fire Giant is up and available. We're starting to see a couple of players rotate over towards this side of the map. Dude Man Bro notably missing if they want to try and go for a push on the big objective. Instead, with Pyromancer available, could be a startup there, especially with the fact that Manda Warrior's teleport is down, and he's on the complete opposite side of the map. I would not be surprised to see the Hounds try and grab this Pyromancer. If not, maybe even go for a pull on fire.
Pyromancer would be pretty smart. There's no real contestant here for the Weavers, especially since Mando was in duo lane. What he was doing there, he teleported the lane, and he was not only trying to hold that tier 1 tower to safety, you can see just how many few autos it would need, but he was also trying to bully out Dude Man Bro. As long as he was there, there was no real threat of the Hounds doing Fire Giant like they are right now.
3, 4th one on the way with Sops for the Weavers to stop this Fire Giant, but it's going down quickly. Diesel has not joined the fight. The boulder goes out, but not enough damage. The Eldritch Hounds will snag the Fire Giant, and now they're aiming for the fight. Oath goes in with the ult. Doesn't find the root, but Mando Warrior was isolated all by himself. It's Crimson who will grab the kill. Chinfu gets a pickup with his ability. Sops throws out the dragons, but too little, too late for him and Chinfu. They both fall down to the might of the Eldritch Hounds.
Pretty much how I called it in picks and bans. With this comp on the Hounds, if you were able to catch the Hu Huang out without any escape, he's pretty much dead to rights. There was so much chase down between Lancelot on the horse. Amaterasu in general provides movement speed with her passive aura on her 1, and just dashes galore between Erupt Crimson and Dude Man Bro. Not only tank and shred down the front line and Manda Warrior, but they can help chase down the rest of the people that are falling on the Weavers.
A right side Phoenix removed from the map by the Hounds. They can make their way towards just about any of these other 2 lanes. 2 towers still standing in left, 1 in mid, and maybe that's why we don't see the Eldritch Hounds pull the trigger and try and go for the end call there, because only Jim, or Big Slim Timmy Jim,
thank you,
and Diesel were still up and around there, and 5 versus 2 definitely would have been more advantageous for the Hounds. A little too healthy on that Titan. Ever since the changes in 9.5, that Titan has a lot more HP when these towers are standing.
Oh yeah, it's very effective to get rid of as many towers in general as possible before you start making your sieges, unless you have the clear numbers or that clear respawn timer advantage where you have enough time to kill the Titan, but it will take a good amount of it, and you need 5 people. 5 people hitting the Titan means no one can really hit an enemy that may be in the base defending it. So take it very slow, get rid of these tier 2 towers at the least that still remain, maybe get a few birds in there, toss it up, see what you can get. It should be pretty free here for the Hounds to just do whatever they want objective-wise in terms of taking towers, taking maybe a bird. They could push this next wave in and try and go for an end, but I think best option is to wait for the next Fire Giant after getting maybe a bird, but clearing out all the towers most importantly.
Tier 2 in mid seems to be the last target for the Eldritch Hounds for the time being, but they still have 2 minutes left on their power play. If they can find 1 pick while trying to go for these towers, maybe delay a bit of time around these Phoenixes. You can see not everybody has rotated to mid to try and slow this one down. It's just been a couple of those players still sticking around there. The duo lane of the Eldritch Hounds sticking to the duo side of the map. And now Crimson rotating over will make it a 3-man swing on the left side. 2 in mid. Ducky and Oath versus their similar oppositions. Ult from Big Slim gets one from Oath. Chinfu holding on to the boulder. But a 1-for-1 ult trade, that one seems to definitely favor at least the Eldritch Hounds. That's a massive team fight one down for Big Slim.
It's very important that you watch who postures where here for the Weavers. They're sending specifically Cerberus and Hercules in that mid lane to deal with Lancelot because they can get rid of him. They can put him in a bad position together. Amaterasu in general is just going to be very hard, very tanky, but doesn't have a lot of pressure on the Phoenix. They're looking for the fight in left here.
Mando hit by the Fields of Love. Quig down, and Ducky finds a solo kill on a Chinfu. The Hercules down for 45 seconds is bad. Ducky going for a 2v1 now. The rest of his team pushing forward to give him an assist. Mando Warrior able to make it back to the fountain. Big Slim able to make it back as well. Fire minions pouring in from the right side. A teleport in on the left by Mando to rejoin and try and defend the bird, but he may have just teleported to his own death instead. Dude Man Pro grabs the kill with the heart bomb. Ducky will go back, but he's got a teleport of his own to rejoin his team as soon as he is ready to go. All 3 Phoenixes stripped from the map. All 5 of the Eldritch Hounds still standing. 3 from the Weavers to defend. Chinfu back up in 10 seconds with the minion wave in, and 5 of the Hounds pushing by, and even the Dragons to move them a little bit closer. It'll be game 1 in 24 minutes going to the Hounds.
Yeah, and what we saw there was just some very smart decision making at the end of it. When Big Slim Timmy Jim as the Cerberus decided to go ahead and leave his jungler to face off against Ducky, that's where it really happened here for the Siege. Ducky was able to get the solo kill. He knows what he's doing in that solo lane matchup, or at least that 1v1 matchup. Gets the kill, makes a very wide opening for the Eldritch Hounds to go ahead and succeed in that left side Siege, and they brought it over into mid lane, and then they brought it over to the Titan.
Unfortunately for Mando Warrior, trying to make the hero play. Don't worry, guys. I'll defend our left Phoenix. No problem. I'll teleport in. Well, he teleported immediately into a Heart Bomb, into a Cabrakan, and too much CC and damage to the King Arthur. Mando Warrior fell down on left, and then there was an easy push in for the Eldritch Hounds to make their way into the throne room, take down the Titan, and start off game number 1, which was a little bit slow, at least to begin with. We got that first blood maybe a little bit earlier on in that duo lane, but we're going to take a quick break before we get ready for game number 2, so stick around and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Challenger Circuit game number 1 of the first matchup goes over to the Eldritch Hounds over the Anansi Weavers. And before we talk a little bit more about the match, let me tell you guys about a really cool sponsor that we have for the SMITE Pro League. It's our good friends over at Skulls, who are providing the brand new jerseys to all of our pro players and to you at home. So if you like one of the jerseys that you see on screen, pick one up for your favorite team. Go over to shop.smiteproleague.com or shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL. Either of those links will work. And make sure to pick up your jersey now. Thank you to our good friends over at Skulls for providing the new merchandise for us over here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. Game number 1 over for the Eldritch Hounds to get things started out there. A little bit slower over to begin this one, Billy, but once we got that first blood over in duo lane, get Dudeman Bro a couple of kills. That point on, he's kind of allowed to free farm for the majority. We did see at least one good team fight for the Anansi Weavers a little bit earlier on, kind of regain control, but then that fight in the mid lane about 10-12 minutes in or so, Eldritch Hounds from that point on took complete control over the game.
Yeah, the Weavers looked pretty strong going into it early. Once they let the phase up kind of happen, they were able to get their items online, they were able to get things going, but they still had to kind of scale further. The Yu Huang never got full velocity, as I like to call it, in terms of his build. Hercules was only able to do so much in a limited amount of space, and speaking of space, Ducky himself was creating so much space for the rest of his team, forcing people back, forcing people out. He did a great job on the Amaterasu and allowed the rest of his team to kind of follow in his success and quite literally follow him as they were able to dash up, dash through, commit very potentially life-threatening abilities to it, like a Thoth dash, a Cupid dash in, should that front line not be there. But of course, Ducky was able to get these kills, able to get action going, interrupt Crimson, was able to look absolutely brilliant on this Thoth. Big ultimates, big abilities, and big numbers coming out through him through every single fight. Of course, Quake had these amazing walls, locking in kills, locking in damage, and Oath was able to just kind of ride on his horse and hop around to wherever the kills may be.
Yeah, I really felt like after the big team fight for the Eldritch Hounds around that 15 or so minute mark came through, from that point on, they were just snowballing across the map, finding one pick here, one pick there, just kind of this death ball style of play, and eventually I was able to net themselves fire down, then eventually net themselves the win at the very end. That last little solo kill that Ducky picks up is what sparks the momentum to kind of end the game for the Eldritch Hounds, and he ends with a 3-0-5 on the Amaterasu, 5-1-6 for Dudeman on the Cupid, who, again, went pretty much uncontested throughout the majority of the early game, got those first couple of picks. We saw some pushes towards fight to the left, but never really kind of put Dudeman Bro in an awkward position, never really forced any relics out of this Cupid. It wasn't until the one big fight that the Weavers did end up grabbing for themselves that they were able to kind of slip in some stuff there. But I think moving into game number 2, maybe some more attention thrown towards that duo lane.
Yeah, Dudeman Bro and Ducky both kind of had very high GPMs. What that means is that they were able to get a lot of farm, a lot of neutral camps, a lot of waves going towards them. And when that's able to happen, they're able to get a lot more items up quicker than their lane opponent. They're able to just develop their build a lot quicker. And even though the pressure wasn't really on either of them specifically, there was a lot of ability for them to, in the late game, in that siege fights that we saw, have the damage to go ahead, take kills where they needed to, and accelerate the Hounds towards the win here.
We will see if maybe the Weavers can slow down the Hounds, at least as far as the picks and bans are concerned, because those are ready for us to jump in and start analyzing. Game number 2 between the Hounds and the Weavers jumps right in for picks and bans. Last time around, we saw some picks get through, like Yamoja able to make its way through, at least all the way until the second wave of bans before that one inevitably gets taken away. We see things like Cerberus support, which is being picked up, maybe not necessarily like early in the draft, but we definitely don't see Cerberus support very often. Don't think there's any reason that you maybe need to ban that one out, but the Weavers will not allow Yamoja through this time, and the Hounds will not give Kabrakan up. That was the first pick for them over in game number 1.
Yeah, very strong pick, Kabrakan, because of his flexibility. We saw Quake pick it up last time, but he can go in any lane. The Sylvanas following this absolute respect towards the jungler. If you didn't know, Chinfu, amazing. I do believe it is every win that the Weavers got, at least in a singular game, was because of having Sylvanas on, well, Chinfu on the Sylvanas. Looks very strong, immaculate, takes it into rank, gets wins every single day of the week, takes it into SEC, doesn't stop there, baby.
Does not stop, but unfortunately he doesn't get to play it again. Along with the Sylvanas and the Kabrak and Ratatoskr, the last bans for the Hounds, then Yamoja, Khepri, and Guan Yu all banned away by the Weavers. For a Merlin first pick, this is not the god that I would expect to be a first pick out of teams. I mean, Merlin is good, sure. I'm not going to discredit anything that Merlin can do, but Billy, to grab him first over all the other gods available?
It leaves you open, to say the least. The Merlin, at least for mid lane, is a solid pick. It's a very kind of generic, almost standard type of mage. Every mid laner should have a good Merlin. Every mid laner probably has a good Merlin. But spacing it, giving it the priority of first pick means you're not really sure where the rest of your team comp wants to go. We see the Ares lock-in and the Naja hover, which makes me think we want a lot of control, which sure, Merlin is very good at providing sustained damage, sustained threat, and shred. I can speak. Provides a lot of ability to get that going out. So it's not a bad pick here, but it does leave you open to counter. I'm thinking the Thor and the Ymir specifically, even the Cupid preventing the Flicker out of situations where you get stuck in Fields of Love makes it a very tough decision to have to pick that Merlin first, and is going to make laning phase just as tough.
I mean, this is a difficult duo lane to fight into that the Hounds have picked up for themselves. I mean, Ymir, Cupid, we've been seeing the kind of pressure that these two gods, when combined with each other, especially once level 2 is hit, all it takes is a freeze into Heart Bomb, and unless you have beads, you're probably just guaranteed dead at that point there. So it's going to be difficult for the Ares in lane, maybe for the Naja to make a rotation over. But as we jump into the second wave of bans, Hou-Yi and Serket, the first one's taken away there, and then Hell. Daji makes sense, but Hell as a ban? That one kind of gets me a head scratch there, Billy.
So Erupt Crimson, kind of not your typical mid laner. As you can see, he's favored the Thoth 2 games in a row now, which we're not really seeing from anyone else, at least. Not yet. IG emoji. But I'm assuming that's something that they know Erupt Crimson brings to the table in terms of what he can bring, at least into mid lane. I wouldn't say he's unconfident on something like that, because he likes stacking up, he likes building, but he also likes putting in a lot of early game pressure, and that's something that between any other jungler that's still open and Hell can kind of provide in that mid lane matchup, especially against a Merlin, because while that level 1, that level 2 is there, Hell really does excel where Merlin falters in that 3 on. It's very strong for Hell to get going. That's probably why they do ban it out, especially with the Naja. Not a big burst damage, but we do see a good bit of picks here for the Weavers, including Naja, Thanatos, and Ares. Who's going where?
I gotta imagine maybe Thanatos over to the solo lane to face off against this Thor solo. That's likely the option because the Mercury is locked in, but we won't have to speculate any longer. Instead, we can just go ahead and go right to game number 2 between the Eldritch Hounds and the Anansi Weavers. Eldritch Hounds start up with a 1-0 with their victory in game number 1. They're looking to make this a nice and even match out there and give themselves a clean 2-0, but I'm wrong. It's not going to be the Thanatos solo that I was expecting. Instead, Naja going to be the call for Mando Warrior. Tell me kind of about the merits that Naja has in the solo lane specifically. I mean, I've had plenty of friends, at least in the time that I've been playing Smite. One of my good buddies, Bryce, used to run this all the time, definitely not going for this style of build. He would still just kind of go towards the glass cannon Naja solo no matter what, but he's stubborn in his way. So tell me about what this Naja provides to solo.
So the Hounds did first pick the Thor, and when you see Ducky on the team, at least in my mind, I knew where that was going. It was going solo lane. They knew when picking this Naja that I'm assuming it was going solo lane. It is a good matchup for Naja specifically because you can use the Sash to interrupt that spin to win ability there on Thor. The damage is going to have to come out through his hammer in lane, which is going to be very dangerous. So the Naja already does set up a very strong early game, and Chinfu's invading purple buff. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to blink out of Invader's Curse, but he does get it, which means that in the mid lane, what Sops is doing, he's going to take red buff on his own, gain that solo XP, and you can see right now he is in mid lane when Erupt Crimson is just coming into tower. So he is going to have wave clear. I'm just very interested in how we are going to get this speed buff down and in the hands of Chinfu. Looks like he's just going to get this purple back and go straight for it. We see over on solo side, Mando Warrior did do that same exact start that Ducky was kind of having, but a bit different. He gets the blue buff, he picks it up, and then he goes for the back camps in addition to that. So there's just a lot of confusing stuff going on in the jungle. Disorientation is more than likely the name of the game. You can see Oath checking those backs right now on the minimap. He's going to probably swing this pressure into solo side. You just have to be very aware and very active on the Hounds. Where are we getting our farm? Where did we lose it? And where can we put pressure for even a kill or just invading?
And for now, at least for the Weavers, they'll get a little bit of that pressure in duo because purple buff did go, at least the way of Chinfu from that invade. So some XP lost out in lane for the Eldritch Hounds. And that has, though, pushed Mando Warrior under the tower. Sash in on top of Ducky. The hammer is down. Ducky doesn't have a way to get out. Does have that spin if he needs it a little bit later on. Has a couple of potions to heal himself up, though, but Chinfu making another rotation to duo. First was to invade the buff. This time, it's to try and grab the kill if he can. Quig in danger. Has that meditation that was keeping him alive for just a little while longer, but the chain from Big Slim, the second one connects, gets the beads from Dude Man Bro, and it'll be first blood for the Weavers.
Very, very smart from Dude Man right there. What you saw him do was keep boxing out Diesel. That on-her damage was very big, could have led to the kill, but instead he zones him out, putting the threat onto Diesel's life, forcing the jump in, forcing the commit, and forcing the rest of his team to have to dive even further and extend the life of Quig as much as possible.
A little bit of a scuffle in the solo lane, but Ducky with Bluestone means that his clear should be a little bit better should he be able to use those abilities on the wave, at least somewhat safely. Oath going for a blue buff invade, stunned away, does still, no, he does not find that extra punch in order to steal the buff. So instead, that one will be secured by Mando Warrior. Not only did he secure the buff, he also strips the beads away from the jungler.
Very, very well done by Mando. Defending our own farm right now when you have the left side just under so much pressure, right? The jungler in Oath is going to naturally look towards reversing the map, playing on the other side. If he can't make it to these purple buffs, if he can't make it to these dual lane fights at the same time that Chinfu can, he's going to try and bring it over to solo lane. He's going to look for as much as he can, and of course Mando negating that, taking beats, taking his blue buff, does a very good job. That's why we saw the start that we saw earlier in terms of defending your own XP, getting those backs down, making sure Oath can't swing around and get the XP where the fight is lacking because there's no XP for him there to get anymore.
Dual lane still in favor of the Weavers as Diesel is able to push the two of them on the side of the Hounds back towards the tier 1 tower just on his own with his on her. Going for a different start than what we're used to seeing out of the Hunters. Diesel, is this an Ichabod rush that we're seeing out of this on her? I mean, normally we see the leather cowl into Transcendence, but Diesel's gone for neither of those picks.
Yeah, so Ichabod is a cringe item. What it does is you auto-attack someone and it makes their auto-attack damage weaker by strengthening yours, right? It steals that essentially. It's kind of if you go it, I have to go it. It makes us even. It's something that you don't have to build against, especially if you're ability-based like Cupid. However, it's going to mean that the auto-attacks in lane and the boxing favor will go towards Diesel, especially now that Dude Man Bro is leaning in towards that Transcendence start. His abilities aren't going to be doing as much damage anyway until that Transcendence is stacked up and even finished. If this Ichabod can come online very quickly, I'm assuming Diesel is going to be looking not only for purple buff invades, but for a lot of boxing in his favor, especially now that he has ult.
Jump in. Heart Bomb does stun out Diesel. 2 of the chains. Make that all 3 from Big Slim is good. Freeze onto Diesel, but no level 5 from Dude Man means he should be fine. Desert's Fury expended to get some extra damage on the wave and on there, but now the ultimates have crashed in. Oath finds the dash onto Diesel, throws him right in to his own punch at the very end of it all. Big Slim does find a couple of chains, but a wall from Quig. Miss freeze
Come on, Quig.
from the Ymir. Might mean that Big Slim could potentially get out of this one, but the
he's
slow,
dead.
the heart bomb, the surrounding as he's against the wall. It's 2 kills for Oath to trade out none on the Hounds.
Oh, but we are seeing a potential commit here from Chinfu. It looked like he was maybe hoping for it, but he decides to back off, defend his own speed buff in the process. As in dual lane, the Hounds do go ahead and take the Weaver's purple buff. That was just very smart. We know that the Ichabod build means that Diesel's going to want to fight. Is he going to want to fight all the time? Yes. Does that mean there are going to be sometimes where he's fighting without his jungler? Yes, again. So go ahead, Oath, make the decision to come over. Merkel, take it, go for the kill, and get it done. Ares is going to be very hard to both fight in and escape without an ADC to kind of assist him in terms of either damage or pressure to kind of just escape. So dead to rights right after the wall. We saw it 45 seconds before he died. There was no way for him to get out. Similar to his ult, no escape.
Ichabod does get finished up for Diesel, so the boxing can begin for the on her. Big Slim going to keep some pressure up and make sure that Dude Man doesn't just get to free farm the wave that's being pushed a little bit closer to the Weaver side of the map to make sure that Diesel does get the maximum amount of farm possible for this on her. Chinfu did end up getting that early rotation, did get that early invade, so started out fairly nice for the Thanatos, but ever since then it's been a little bit quiet from Chinfu early on. And this the time of the game, kind of that early first 12 to 15 levels where Thanatos really does shine.
Yeah, so Thanatos' thing is that he gets a lot of pressure early, falls off just a teeny bit into that mid game, but realistically getting executes, getting big insta kills literally on tanks when tanks are very strong. Procs are huge. If he can just cut through that with an execute, that's when he's going to be even better. I think right now the Weavers are looking to have pressure out through this Ares. Does have the kill, 1 death. So he's still strong. He's fightable. They're looking on what side of the map to play right now, and they're looking blue, and I really do like what the Weavers have compared to the Hounds.
Blue buff stolen by Chinfu. Freeze onto the Ares. And Ultimate has got 3 chained up. Will only pull Ducky in. As Oath used his beads, Quig used his ultimate, and Naja ult in the sky for Mando. But doesn't have a lot of damage. Ducky fairly tanky and no damage from Mando. Ducky will go down as there were 3 there, but Oath able to grab one of his own. It's a jungle 4 solo trade out and maybe a little bit more. Root on a Mando. Heal keeps him topped off. But a freeze right at the end. Sonic Boom not even necessary, except unless they maybe want to go for a kill on the Sops, who's expended a lot of his mobility. Now with that flicker to get out. Dash in by Oath, grabs Big Slim, who may have just stuck around a little too long. No more mana to his name and no more HP. Once Oath can close that gap, find another kill, and put up number 5 for the Hounds.
Very nice cleanup from the Hounds there. What they were able to do was turn this fight around where the pressure wasn't. Lots of abilities go down on that solo side, and Diesel does get Dude Man low, invades the purple because of it, and gets some good pressure going. But the pressure on that solo side is what happened and what was allowed to make that fight work. We saw some very, very smart play from Chinfu. He saw Mando Warrior go ahead and take Ducky up. Ducky was a free kill, a free execute on land. He decides, no, I can't do this, because the Thoth is charging ult. That huge ult from Erupt Crimson would have done numbers against Mando Warrior. Maybe could have killed him. Maybe could have set up for even more damage to go into the way of the Weavers. So Chinfu lands on Thoth, interrupts it, gets Thoth beads, and forces the Merc to fight him instead of getting involved into that team fight. And sure, it didn't go the way of the Weavers at that time, but kills like this are the reason, well, I guess kills like this are the reason why the Weavers are looking so strong regardless of what happened.
Not yet.
Ooh.
But I was just about to say, Blink was up for Chinfu, and that is an easy blink in and a kill onto the mid lane, despite the best efforts of Quig. Second chain goes through, third chain not fired. Red buff being stolen, secured by the support, and Chinfu's the one who goes down. 1 for 1, maybe make it 2. Ult from Big Slim. Wall makes sure that that Ares goes nowhere, and the stun from the Heart Bomb makes for an easy double kill for the support of the Weavers. Or the Hounds.
You got there. Playing Ares like this is kind of, at least into this comp, is kind of a bait for the Ares player. You get yourself found out of position, a lot like Mando Warriors, who could be in some pretty big trouble.
Thrown against the wall between 2 assassins. Sonic Boom charged up,
Ooh.
but a little short by Oath. And I feel like he could have just stuck there and fight. Ducky interrupted out of his sash, forced up into the sky. Will he get the dunk target? He might not need it because Crimson is here. Does not land, but Crimson is able to clean up the kill anyways.
And we missed it on screen, but a big, big, big solo kill for Diesel over in duo lane.
And maybe one more kill onto Crimson. Barely got out last time.
No.
Don't think he's going to get out this time
you.
either. As Chinfu and Sops team up to take down the mid laner once more.
That was just some great fight from the Weavers. They finally decided to play off of that pressure. Thankfully, Oath kind of misplayed there, playing not off of the ring bounce, but Naja was able to space so far away from him, make so much damage, kind of irrelevant, that was still casted. What a jump Diesel styling on him here in duo lane.
Quig will put up the wall. That'll slow things down just a little bit. Doom Man Bro on the way. No ult available. Fire. No, the meditation once again by Quig keeps him alive and allows him to live through this fight. Big Slim does have Blink, but can't get in there. Doom Man Bro keeping him in combat, preventing him from closing the gap onto Quig.
Nothing feels worse as a Ymir than missing like the most easy freeze in your life, but something even worse than that is getting styled on in the process. Sure, it didn't lead into a kill. It was maybe like 1 extra auto from Diesel involved, but it was close.
Blink in by Chinfu. Wow, that sight did a lot of damage. So did the Heart Bomb to slow them down. Fire. Once again, not enough. Does Dude Man have the juke boots to get away from the Thanatos? He does. The dash comes up in time. Maybe not as free of an execute as you might think. And with Oath there to punish him on landing, it is a turnaround kill for the Hounds instead.
You got to take that, like, you are that confident here. Mid lane, Ducky will rotate and get the kill. Amanda, who's snuck on over. The big ult from Erupt Crimson won't even hit. It'll do damage like Oath does to wrap up this kill against Big Slim Timmy Jim here in duo lane. And this is just kind of pressure here from the Hounds, snowballing where they got the leads, bringing it over to areas that they don't have the lead. Dude Man Bro is looking massive compared to how he was just a few minutes ago. And they're going to get kills in duo and potentially a gold fear at the end of it all.
It's just bullying the Sops, not even letting him have a chance to go back to bases. They're standing in between the 2 towers of the mid lane. With Chinfu rotating over, I don't think Crimson wants to stick around. He knows how much damage that scythe does firsthand. And you probably definitely don't want to lazy back in the jungle. But Gold Fury goes to the Eldritch Hounds. That pushes them up to about a 3,000 plus gold lead now early on in the game. Same for the XP department, sitting about the same pace. It's actually funny, for a moment, just earlier on, Quig was actually ahead in XP compared to Doomman Bro. He was level 9 to the level 8. But even with all the pressure that the Eldritch Hounds have, with the fact that Quig's got 3 kills, Doomman Bro finally has that pressure put on, though, we were asking for in game 1.
Yeah, he does have a lot going in on him, and that is the process of having that Ichavolt on your ADC, regardless of what you build. That boxing, as we saw it on that purple, well, I guess we didn't see it, but that solo kill that went in the favor of Diesel just shows what he can provide. In that boxing scenario, he's going to be winning most of it.
Diesel goes in aggressive, finds the knock-up, throws out the pillar, execute off the mark by Chinfu, so no stun available to them. And Quig will just body block a couple more shots to make sure that Dudeman can stay at full HP. But that is beads and ultimate gone by Diesel. Sure, a bit of a shorter ultimate cooldown, but unfortunately for Mando, he's going to need to use ult. Does manage to squeak by. Oath charging up his own Sonic Boom. Diesel again goes in. And the wraparound, eventually the Mando Warrior will go down. Sash will keep him alive for longer, but it's one for Oath. And oh my god, again, I always forget just how much damage that Scythe can do until it hits a carry for half of their health. Quig eats another one of his own. That's quarter HP. Does have another meditation.
Put a wall
Freezes
up, put a wall
Chinfu.
up.
Doesn't have the wall just yet. So Chinfu and
Oh my
Diesel,
goodness.
Diesel down to less than 100 HP. Quig throws up the wall to make sure he will be fine. With Oath rotating over, Sonic Boom wasn't used. This could be perfect bait for Quig to find a kill. Major look, off the mark, dash, no good. Sonic Boom has to be used for this one. The pillar almost blocks it. Oath now it's like the 1v1 against, misses another major look, finds the punch against Chinfu, but Chinfu stood in place up against him, and now Diesel will go down 2 with the rotation from Ducky.
That was the ultimate game of chicken there between Oath and Diesel. He knew the ultimate was coming. He was ready to put the pillar in his face. Swings by a little too hard on the left. Diesel's fine, but that 1v1 boxing match between Oath and Chinfu both had taken a little bit of damage from different sources respectively. But that lifesteal wasn't enough to save Chinfu. Decides to go ahead, call it quits on the chicken, try to go up, but Oath gets so lucky with those crits, takes him down with a few punches to the face, and gets another in the books for him. Looking 8-0 and looking massive. Any fight that swings around this Mercury's way, which could be a lot of fights, he has a very long-reaching ult. It's more than likely going to go in favor of the Hounds. We see a lot of fights, at least without him. Okay, dude. Okay, dude. That is... Don't stomp my back like that in your life, dude. You will not hear the end of it. Do not try that, ever. That is so... Oh. Anyway.
It's a solo lane mentality.
Dude.
That is the duel/solo mentality of, you're going to back in front of me? No, you're not going to back. Especially when Thoth has the range of eternity, is as infinite range on that ultimate at that point, it feels like sometimes. But I don't think we're stressing the fact enough that Oath is 8-0, not even 15 minutes into the game. 8-0-4, by the way. So he's been a part of 12 kills of the 14 for the Weavers, and has really made that big impact. Has that rage fully stacked up, has the Deathbringer online. And Quig will be fine. In fact, it's turnaround damage on a Chinfu. Doesn't get to the sky once again. Caught. Trying to stand in place to go up for there. Ult will only pull in one. Ducky finds a kill onto Sops, and Mando Warrior does his best, but a wall from Quig, another wall from Ducky. Mando Warrior is squished between a double wall and double god. Now with Big Slim on the run, not very far. Can this Ares go, especially when the chain does not connect either? Root in place by Erupt Crimson. Knocked down. It's a triple kill for Crimson and a deicide for the Hounds.
Just some great spacing there from the Hounds, turning Naja into a sandwich between 2 walls, getting him stuck up, having so much ability to just dash through freely. And the coordination between him and Quig to let Erupt Crimson get out of the fight, have the wall come up and defend him instead of, walling in the face of Crimson and keeping him locked in. So smart. Great gameplay, great teamwork here from the Hounds. But will it survive a Chinfu ultimate? No.
Chinfu does grab one, but the Fire Giant still being held onto by the Hounds. So they'll trade out their support for Fire. A tale as old as time in Smite. Lose your support, get the major objective. That's a win. Probably didn't want to lose his life, but not going to be too upset about it.
Yeah, you can see this huge swing in terms of both gold and XP. Where this is kind of translating to is in that jungle. The Thanatos is falling very hard off for Chinfu. Not even able to get up into the skies for the executes. The stuns and the scythes are doing a lot less damage than they would be. This is kind of that drought almost of damage, of usefulness that the Thanatos is going to have to go through and suffer through in this mid-game. Once you can kind of wrap it around towards the late game, you're still executing Ducky, who's building into tank items. You can still execute Quig every now and again. But it's going to take a while to get there. It's going to take some living. It's going to take some good fights in the favor of the Weavers. We'll see if we can find one here.
No, beads are going to be popped by Oath, so not going to be pulled in by that Ares. Ducky just off the mark with the hammer against Mando Warrior. And look at the deficit here. Ducky could probably take this 2v1. Well, instead just use the ultimate to get out. Chinfu used his to jump in, so can't chase out Do-Man Bro. Even in levels with Diesel, but not going to be even in the manpower now with Oath and Quig rotating around. This 1v1 has gone south for Diesel at the very least. Double kill for Oath as he found one pick on the left side jungle and makes his way over towards left to grab another one.
Very respectful, at least, towards Diesel. He knew he was going to die regardless. 3 people around. We might as well jump in, try and get a kill. Sure, Dude Man Bro with full HP, but who knows? Maybe this one executes. Just toss it out, see if it hits.
Never know. Maybe something happens. Maybe he gets a lucky.
Oh, no, Chinfu.
Oh.
A full combo would have killed him, by the way. Rupt had to miss one of those.
Well, luckily for Chinfu, one did miss, but will blink even closer to make it easier for the Thoth. Mando misses the ult, and that's immortal for Oath as he has 11-0, 18 minutes in. We're already pushing up Phoenix for the Eldritch Hounds. Quig stuck inside. Does get the freeze onto Big Slim. Ducky, by the way, in between the 2 Phoenixes inside of the enemy territory. He'll be able to find his way out. Ultimate backup for him as well. Big Slim is walking just slowly but menacingly. Ducky finds the double stun, the double hammer, the almost double kill if he can get up and find something else. A dunk down on a Big Slim will get the ultimate, and the Ares ult will not pull anybody in. Final judgment, though, just off the mark. Big Slim will not make it out of there. The stun, the root after. There's the double kill for Ducky. 4 down. Can we make it a triple as Chinfu dives in towards Dude Man, finds the execute and for the stun, and then the damage after. Chinfu trying to fight back in, finds the double for himself, and now with Mando showing up, could be good for Chinfu, but a wall is even better out of the Thor, and Oath will grab his 12th kill of the game.
Some good work there, at least on that second half of the fight. Unfortunately, this Phoenix should be pretty free here for the Hounds. What we saw during that fight was kind of just what happens when you have 2 assassins on your team. And when one gets turned into a sandwich, again, for the second time this match, Mando find himself stuck between a wall, and damage was pretty easy to find him. Regardless, what you got to do here as the Weavers is kind of just get as much as you can, throw whatever you have at the wall, whatever sticks, whatever doesn't. Oh, well, pack it up. We have to try again. It's 19 minutes, so finding a Titan kill is going to be pretty hard for the Hounds, regardless of how many deaths come through. So that's probably what the Weavers are looking for. Get whatever they can off the board right now and just stall and stall. Hopefully, late game, you have a bit of a better chance in these fights.
I feel so bad for the Weavers because, like, Oath should have died there. Oath sonic boomed in enemy territory, surrounded by 3, and he just walked away. He just casually strolled away from the bottom side of the left jungle, past the mid-tier 2 tower, up the left side jungle, and now he can even work towards his godlike status as well beyond there. 12-0 and 11 for the Mercury, though Quig did lose his life during all of that. Oni Fury started up. Eldritch Hounds can grab that one and further extend this ever-spiraling gold lead. 15,000 up for the Eldritch Hounds. 15,000 gold is something that, I mean, we typically see, if it does happen, around 30, 35 minutes of play. We're 20 minutes in. The Eldritch Hounds, pretty much it's their game to lose at this point.
Yeah, and losing is still possible, right? You don't want to rest on your laurels too quickly, especially when it comes to a game of Smite like this, because this comp from the Weavers, sure, at this point is very weak, especially when you have a big ol' ult in your face. This Thoth damage is absolutely insane right now. We're looking at 19 and 20k respectively for the mid and jungle of the Hound, but we're coming into this as the Weavers. How do we win? Take farm as much as you can. Die when you have to. It'll happen, and it's going to happen one more time here.
Well, Mando Warrior will at least delay that for a little while longer. 54 crits coming from that ultimate. Oath will grab his 14th one now. Hit that godlike in the mid lane. Go ahead and extend that a little bit further onward. Fire Giant under the eyes of the Eldritch Hounds, unless a miracle steal from God himself at this point takes away the Fire Giant. There's no way that one is going to anyone but the Eldritch Hounds. They'll go ahead and grab that one, and then they can continue their push as left side Phoenix is already down. Oni minions are pushing up in all of the other lanes. Only 2 towers left standing, and the Hounds should be able to close this one out quickly.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty easy for the Hounds. They have so much initiation. Diesel finds himself 2-tapped at that purple buff. Yeah, I hope you wanted purple that bad, buddy, because I do think he did get it. So purple buff XP goes his way for his life. Worthwhile trade, realistically, looking at it. It's very good. These crits are just going to come walking down in just like the rest of the Hounds. There's 3 people here to kill Oath,
no,
but he might just get out of this alive. 1, 2, just barely lives.
More.
Can he get enough damage? Mando will find it, as we are looking to defend this Titan, but we used a lot of resources just for 1 kill.
Did use a lot. Big Slim Diesel down for minimum 15 seconds between the two. Sops fighting 2 and losing to the 3rd, who'd rejoin the fray. Dude Man Bro gets credit for the kill. Fields of love onto Chin Fu, who will just completely get himself out of there. Scythe still hits. Dude Man a little late on the Aegis. Chin Fu a little late to the Fountain. Diesel is back up, but it's a level 16 on her versus the rest of the Eldritch Hounds. You thought 24 minutes in game number 1 was fast. Add the Trebuchet to the mix. The Eldritch Hounds can close this one out in just 23 minutes. Give them, actually not even fully on that one.
Nope.
Be 2 minutes faster than game 1.
Yeah, that was some great gameplay by the Hounds, obviously, and not to discredit anything from the Weavers. That was a very well-drafted comp. It played to their strengths, at least as players, and it synergized pretty well. All in all, it was kind of falters in the execution. The Hounds had a draft that was much more easier to perform on. It didn't rely on builds, the execution, the game plan was kind of just play through where we have leads, while the Weavers had this very specific, you have to play through the duo lane at this point, you have to swing it over to mid, you have to swing it over to solo. Any falter kind of in that game plan is going to leak, going to cause some issues for the Weavers to have to force fights through, force bad situations, objectives through, what have you, and they just weren't able to do it at the end of the day. The Hounds take this one pretty easily by walking down, but there was a fight there at least.
There was at least some fight back from the Weavers, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's not easy fighting into the number 1 seed, and again, the Eldritch Hounds have been number 1 since the very beginning of season 9, I should say, going back into phase number 1. I mean, we look back at Crimson's history in phase 1. This guy, up until the last week of play in the SCC, had only like 4 or 5 deaths the entire time for
Something
4
like that.
weeks of play, and then ends up like nearly doubling it in the last week just because they're like, okay, well, we've already won. We can have a little bit of fun. But I think for me, at least, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for the Weavers was when Chin Fu rotates over to the duo and ends up missing that execute on Dude Man Bro, and then ends up being a turnaround, I think double if not triple kill that goes the way over of Oath. That gets him his Rage online, Deathbringer shortly afterwards, and from that point onward, it just felt like it was completely out of the Weavers' control.
Yeah, they had a few issues, at least in the execution on that front. The Thanatos was mainly getting caught out a lot in these team fights. Fights were started on him, on the rotations of Chin Fu, forcing his ult early, forcing that ult just to give time for the rest of the Hounds to get on him and kill him. Some great work done by Oath in the jungle, counter-jungling at the moment where Chin Fu was in left. He was making plays over with Ducky and solo lane. That's kind of the strength of having 2 assassins be ahead like that. Meanwhile, for the solo lane of the Hound, for the Weavers, all you had was that Naja, who was kind of just falling back, falling low, and not able to keep up with that amount of farm and amount of damage that Ducky's outputting.
And then 27,000 player damage for at least the jungler there, Oath, to
It
close
was
that one
crit.
out.
It was Crit's work.
All right, but, okay, so hold on. So we make the excuse for solo laners of it's just the solo lane, they're hitting each other, that's where all the fake damage comes through. You can't pull that thing with a Mercury in jungle. You know he's going to be going crit. That's just the way that you build him.
Crit damage is a little cringe, to be honest. As a tank player, I have a 1 item to counter crit, 1 item that does well against it, and then you still get to crit me. I don't get it. Jungler's an OP role. Let's nerf them a little bit. Get rid of all their items. They don't need to build. They can just exist.
Well, for now, the Eldritch Hounds will exist with a 2-0 win for themselves. Let's take a look back at the schedule for North America to see what action you have missed for week number 1 of Phase 3 of the SCC. The Shivalba Storm, Yomi Tanuki, and Eldritch Hounds all grab 2 game victories. 1 loss, at least there, up against the Athenian Sages for the Shivalba Storm. The only 2-1 of the North American region. The rest 2-0s out for themselves. And that was week number 1. Remember, these guys are going to be playing in a single round robin between all of the teams within their region, so everybody's going to have a chance to play up against each other. That then moves them and gets them ready for ENA qualifiers later on to then get these guys ready for the road to Worlds, which is what all of these players are inevitably aiming for, is that chance to play on the world stage. There are some possibilities. I mean, we've been seeing some struggles with teams to the SPL so far. Twice now in the Masters, we've had a team drop out and have an SCC team replace them for the second week of play. Always some potential out there for these SCC teams to maybe make an upset, Billy.
Yeah, we've seen it as early as Ghost Gaming versus Armada. There are upsets that are possible to happen. There is everything that is possible to happen. These challenger teams can look so good for just one set. Just need to beat one SPL team, and you're in on Worlds. You knock one team out. It could happen. It is very real. We've seen it in our past in the Masters events. We've seen that happen a few times already. I think this is a very good set of SCC teams. A lot of players like Oath have gotten that SPL talent. Sino from the Wardens, very same deal. They've gotten in on these SPL games. They've gotten in on SPL comms. They've been there before, not even. So it's very possible to see something like that happen, and I'm rooting for them all the way.
Yeah, it could be a very fun phase for the SCC, but that's all that we have for the SMITE Challenger Circuit. The SPL is going to be coming up at 1 p.m., so make sure that you stick around. We're going to take it to a bit of a break, and when we come back, Phase 3, Week 2 of the SPL continues.